once again to Half Baked. It's the podcast where two Northerners argue a contentious slash non-contentious issue. One of us, me this week, is going to present a half-baked idea, and the other, Phil, this week, will attempt to rebuff the idea by pointing out its shortcomings. And then by the end of the show, we will hopefully have decided whether we're going to fully bake the idea, whether we're going to throw it in the bin. So in traditional style, I'm going to ask Phil, how are you? Where are you? What are you wearing?
Hi, Alistair. Yeah, I'm here in sunny Northern California. It's a beautiful day, and I'm actually wearing Banana Republic for a change. Yeah, I'm going to ask the same thing you, Alistair. Where are you? How are you? And what are you wearing?
I'm confused because you're wearing Banana Republic. That doesn't kind of make sense, but it does neatly link to what we're going to be half baking today. I'm in West Yorkshire. I'm wearing nautical John Smedley. Who knew? Sea Island cotton from John Smedley. Why it can't just be cotton from John Smedley? I don't know. Why does it have to be Sea Island? Why does everything have to have adjectives before? It drives me mad. Anyway, I'm wearing John Smedley cotton, and I'm wearing comfy pants, aka pajamas, which I know you're not a fan of, are you?
No, nobody should ever be wearing comfy pants. It's just a terrible, terrible concept. No matter how old you are, I would never I wouldn't be seen dead. Even at my funeral, I wouldn't want comfy pants.
You just like being constrained and uncomfortable at all times, don't you?
Absolutely.
I think this is it. Look, this week's half-baked idea is an absolute doozy, I think. We're going to be talking about the subject of refugees because I've solved the refugee crisis, Phil. How does that make you feel? I'm excited to say.
Very impressed. I'd be very impressed if that was the case, Alistair. I find that a little difficult, but let's see where we get to.
Be prepared to be impressed. The reason why I'm talking about this today is because the refugee thing, the crisis, is all over the news. It's terrible. Every day, there just seems to be some sort of utter catastrophe taking place. And the poor refugees, they're not wanted where they live, and they're not wanted where they turn up. And they end up in terrible conditions, potentially worse than the ones that they're trying to flee from in places like Calais. And it seems to me that no country wants the refugees, and no country's got a viable policy for it. There are policies out there. Are you across the current British policy for what we're going to do with refugees? Have you heard about this in the States?
I have, yeah. I still read the Sunday Times, the Times from London, as they would call it over here, but it's not. It's the Times, and yes, I'm up to date. Well, almost up to date with what's going on over there. It all sounds nuts to me. All sounds very half baked, actually.
It is. That's exactly what it is. It is. It's completely half baked. I mean, just to remind international listeners, as much as it shames me, the British policy, which is unlawful, they're trying to change the law to accommodate it, is basically stick loads of refugees on a plane and fly them to Rwanda, a place in the not too distant past where there was an enormous civil war between, warring factions, Tutsis and the others. And that's probably only sort of 20 or 30 years ago. And I'm just disinclined to believe that this country has got the infrastructure and the laws and the policies to be able to make the refugees' lives any good. It sounds completely half-baked. Phil, we could have been the policymakers. What are we doing?
We could be government advisors for the British government. Absolutely, it's
we
so
could.
half-baked.
We could. It sounds like something that they've come up, an idea that they've drummed up when they've been in the pub, getting leathered. I think my idea is a better policy than that, and I'm not in any way leathered. So here's the idea: we have across Europe. Let's just think about Europe and refugees coming from like Turkey and Syria and Afghanistan. They're kind of coming from east to west, aren't they? And we have across Europe loads of space where it doesn't, where there's not a lot of people in. So let's take an area which has maybe got three borders on it. That's four. Three borders on it. So let's say, I don't know, in the region of um, Ukraine. No, bad idea. Somewhere in Eastern Europe where there are three borders and there's not a lot going on, and we kind of carve out a, a few hundred square miles of these three territories that belong to three different countries, but they're going to give them up. They're going to give the territory up, and the refugees are going to land there, and they're going to start a new country, and we are going to help them start a new country. Now that sounds ridiculous. I understand that, but here's the clever bit. So first of all, let's assume it's three countries. The three countries are struggling at the minute with refugees coming in, and they don't want them, rightly or wrongly. And so they're doing their bit by giving up the land. All of those other in Europe, I don't know, 25 or so other countries who are also getting refugees come in, have got to do their bit because they're not giving up their land, right? So what the other countries do, like the UK, is they pump all of the money that they're saving because they're not having to put loads of refugees in bloody prison boats and nonsense and fly them off to Rwanda. Pump in all the hundreds of millions of pounds that they're saving from not having the refugees come in, and they build an infrastructure in the new country. Now, admittedly, it's going to take a little bit of time. Could take 10 or 20 years. I don't know. But us, loads of other countries, invest in the new country and over time make it a lovely place for the refugees to live. Problem solved, I think. But it's not about what I think necessarily. It's about what you think, Phil. Can you see
Well,
any gigantic holes in my plan?
yeah, it's full of gaping holes. In some ways, I kind of like it. In other ways, it's just nonsense. But there is precedence for it. It occurs to me a similar thing was done with the formation of Israel, and
Yeah,
that
how
was
did
quite a
that go?
success. Um, but
That didn't go so well, did it?
there's a few other things though. I mean, when you put the whole thing about refugees is they're coming to a better place, and they're coming to somewhere that's already got infrastructure in place and laws and police and things like that and hospitals, so they can have a better life. If you're just dumping them, and also something that's really quite stable. So if you're just dumping them somewhere where not that infrastructure isn't in place, I know you said, oh, you'd put it in place, but that could take a while. Well, maybe that's all right. Maybe you're thinking 10, 20 years ahead. Actually, that's quite visionary. But you put this infrastructure in place, hospitals, everything you need, schools, there's jobs for them. People need jobs in order to feel, though most people do anyway, as though they've got a purpose and a value of life, and so they can generate money, so they can buy things, so they can live a good life. So you'd need to
True.
have that going on. So to set up a new country to do that, that's a big bold thing to do. So yeah. But the other thing is, if there isn't already a stable country and you're just pulling in people from different places who don't really have much in common, that could be a disaster in terms of a tinderbox of just unrest, rioting, fighting against each other. You've got to have people have got to get on and have some common values in order to live together in harmony, like piano keys on a keyboard. And yeah, if you're bringing people from all over different places and just dumping them in one place without it having a culture of its own already, that might be difficult.
Oh dear, that was a good rebuttal. Okay, so a few things then. Dumping is your phrase, right? No one's dumping anyone. It sounds like we're pushing people out of aeroplanes, and I'm not advocating that. Not in this instance, anyway. So no one's going to be dumped. Infrastructure. it is going to take a while. I totally agree. I don't know how long it would be. I mean, the world mobilized pretty quickly when it needed to during COVID. Now, I know this is on a different scale, but there is a precedent there, I think. And we are solving a kind of a universal problem here. All of the countries involved struggle, whether it's morally, financially, ethically, in terms of infrastructure, really. Um, everyone is having a problem solved, aren't they? Which is a good thing. So it's kind of hopefully people are going to be pulling together. Jobs, I totally agree. I mean, why can't the countries that are no longer getting loads of refugees agree a 20, 30-year period during which they have to buy the produce from the country? That could be crafts, it could be, it could be produce of some description. So I mean, I know I'm kind of being pretty reductive about some pretty big ideas, but I guess what I'm saying is, if you have an idea, you start thinking about it in a bit more detail and you solve these problems. The culture thing is a problem. I get that. I don't, in my idea, you're having people from Afghanistan, Turkey, and Syria all coming together in one place, and yeah, that does sound like a bit of the start of a problem. You're using pretty strong language there, like rioting and tinderbox isn't that strong, really, is it? But I understand that it could flare up, so that is a problem. But does it sound like it's got legs, or am I just barking up the wrong tree completely?
I think it's a very creative suggestion. It does occur to me there's lots of places in the world that where there's vast tracts of land that are uninhabited, mainly because they're uninhabitable. I suspect. Like there's huge. Look at the United States of America. There's huge, loads of places there that in between, not between countries, but between states where there's nothing going on. You could, and America it was a country of immigrants, right? That used to be an option. These days, the problem is how much immigration can you handle? And if it's a small influx of people, it's fine. It's when it gets overwhelming that it's a problem, right?
Yeah, and my perspective is that this solves that problem. People are kind of very nervous about immigration, but this isn't immigration. It's a new country. You're kind of making a point there about natural resources. Now, um, the only reason why our three countries would give up the land is because they didn't have any implicit value to them, right? Which means they haven't really got natural resources. But I wonder if the timing is right for this idea because natural resources aren't such an important thing anymore. And my ridiculous, probably unfounded argument for this goes as follows: 30 years ago, a country of completely zero natural resources in South Korea started on a direction to becoming a tech economy. And now it's one of the biggest tech economies in the world with a really lively economy, really lively culture, which is permeating around the world. And I don't know if we've ever seen a country with zero or next to no natural resources come up so quickly within such a short period of time and become so culturally and economically relevant. Same thing happened with Japan. Japan was bombed out of all existence in the 40s, which was a bad thing. I think we've agreed that from a former half baked episode. It took one idea, the box that shaped the world, to turn Japan around. Very few natural resources. Within 20 or 30 years, they were the biggest exporter of automotive vehicles in the world. So it can be done. And I think that as we are much more in a digital economy, then natural resources are less important. I'm kind of talking myself into my idea, Phil, which I didn't think I would do. What do you think?
Well, no, I don't. I think that's all right. I think the main problem, though, Alistair, is what you're going to call this new country.
What am I going to call it? I'm going to call it Rainbow Land. I'm going to call
That
it
is a
Rainbow
terrible.
Land. Eh?
That's That's a terrible, terrible, terrible name, Alistair.
Right. Oh, okay. Oh, well, let's work with it. Let's workshop and spitball it, whatever that means. I've just thought of it. I wasn't expecting you to ask that question. Um, so I'm just
It,
backtracking through my logic there. Land, because countries end in the word land.
that seems very lazy to me to just put land on the end of a country name. There can't be that many countries that have land at the end, are there? I guess Lapland,
Lapland.
Finland.
Is Lapland a place or is it made up?
Well, I thought it was made up, but somebody went there recently, apparently, to see Father Christmas. I don't know.
Probably.
England, I guess,
England. England.
Scotland, and
Scotland.
Ireland, um,
Ireland.
Newfoundland,
Not a country.
Greenland. Actually, there's quite now that I'm talking about it. There's quite a few that just end in land. Okay, so there's
So
but
land is good, right? Ra- you said land was lazy. Rainbow. So rainbows. Okay, so it might be a wet place, the new country. It's called Rainbow Land, but it's inclusive and it's full of hope and gender equality and whatnot. It's a place of hope. I think is Rainbow Land. It's a terrible name, isn't it? It's a terrible name.
yeah, just thinking of other countries that have changed their names over the last few years. I mean, Ceylon became Sri Lanka. Burma is now Myanmar. Rhodesia became Zimbabwe, maybe Zambia. A bit of that.
This is good knowledge,
Uh,
Phil.
yeah. Well, one country that really got a bit lazy, I think. There was a country called Urundi. It became Burundi. That's really, but really. What else?
What
Swaziland changed recently, but
what
I
did
don't know what to.
what did
Swaziland. I think Swaziland.
Swaziland
I think so. Um,
Swaziland, where Richard E. Grant is from,
he is from Swaziland, but no
changed its
longer because
name?
it's no longer called that. I believe, unless it's Lesotho. I don't know. One of those countries in or around South Africa has changed its name recently. I'm
I've
pretty
just
certain.
I've just googled it. You're quite right. Swaziland is now called Eswatini. So I mean, all
Okay.
they've done is change a terrible name for a terrible name. Swaziland.
There was another one. I was a while ago. I was looking up the Rwanda changed its name to Rwanda, which also is a little bit odd, I think.
All right. So the UK's policy on refugees is not to send refugees to Rwanda. After all, it's to send them to Rwanda. Um, I've just googled Swaziland, which has almost got the word Nazi in it. Maybe that's why they changed it. Changed its name to Eswatini, and whilst they were doing so, you need to Google the Eswatini flag. It's terrible. That's a terrible flag. Listeners, viewers.
How bad can it be? How bad can it be? I mean, I don't really take much notice of flags, but really, is it really that bad?
Yeah. If a camel is a horse designed by a council of people, then the Eswatini flag is exactly the same. It's like it's got 25 ideas on it. It's like when Homer Simpson designed the car in that episode of The Simpsons, and they unveiled it. It was a dog's dinner. Anyway, I'm gonna stop there because we may have some Eswatinian listeners slash viewers on, and they may love their flag. What I'm saying is entirely subjective. If I was to design a flag, it would be worse than that. It wouldn't. Um, yeah. So I mean, so why did Salon's a perfectly good name? It's what you just step out of.
It's not.
Why was that?
It's not salon, it's Ceylon. It's not. You've just stepped out of a salon. It's
Okay.
Ceylon.
Salon. Okay.
But
Okay.
no
Oh
longer is
God.
it called Ceylon. It's Sri Lanka now, I believe.
I'm feeling terrible. I started this half baked idea in good conscience, and now I feel like I could get a job within the UK government. Um, So I don't know what have you got any better ideas for my country? There I go again. Oh my god! After just by talking about something, I've become a despot. Have you got any better ideas for the new country than Rainbow Land?
I've got to say that I haven't. It's not something I've ever thought of before, and I don't think I'm very good at naming things. So I wouldn't even attempt as we go down that path, Alistair.
If anyone out there can think of a better name for our new country than Rainbow Land, please send your comments in. If you can think of a better way than solving the refugee crisis, if you think this could work and it just needs a little bit of a nuance, which is what I think, then please also let us know as well. There is nothing good about refugees. It's awful. And if we
Yeah,
can
and I
solve
agree,
the
Alistair. I think one of the
then so
things
much
about your
better.
idea is what's the alternative? Just keep doing what we're doing. That clearly isn't working. Doing what we're doing, so that it needs some fresh thinking and the long term vision. Um, I mean, one thing that occurs to me is solve the problem at source, but that's equally a massively difficult problem. So yeah, having some solution like this, at least it's a suggestion.
Solving the problem at source usually ends in invasion, though, doesn't it? And that doesn't go
Yeah,
well. That never
I
goes
don't know.
well.
There's some. I mean, when the British invade countries, we do a good job, I think. I mean, look at we spread the goodness around the world. I mean, we when we go to India, we put in roads and things like that. Okay, there was a few massacres and things, which were terrible, terrible, clearly. But there's this we do some good, I think, when the British do it. When other countries do it, yeah, they always mess it up. They're terrible. Just let the Brits do it. That's what I say.
Yeah, I don't think history's on your side, Phil. I think it's virtuous that you're being so kind of optimistic about the history of where you're from. I think the history books probably tell us differently. We're still apologising for it all, and rightly or wrongly so, where we are indeed. I'm going to pull it to a close there. I have a decision to make, which is do I fully bake this idea or not? It's not ready for fully baking, is it? That's the tough conclusion I'm coming to. I think there's something in there, but it's almost like I haven't thought about it from sufficient number of angles. And so, you know what? I'm not going to throw it in the bin. I'm not going to put it in the oven. I'm going to I need to ask permission to do this from you, really, Phil. But can I put it in the half baked freezer for the time being? Can we freeze the idea and then remove it another time when perhaps I've thought about it a bit more properly? Can I do that?
So you're going to park the problem somewhere until for give it more thought. I personally don't like that idea, Alistair, but and I don't think you need to seek my permission though. I think you just do what you do.
Right. I'm gonna freeze it. This is a revolution in half baked. We've been doing this for a number of episodes now, over a number of months, over at least two continents, and never before have we frozen an idea. So this is a first. I think there's something in there, but it's also ridiculous, and that's I think where the half baked freezer comes in. Great, there we go. It's time for us to sign off. Please hit subscribe. Please place your comments, particularly on this topic. Share with your friends. We'll be back next week for another half baked episode. Just leaves me to say, Phil, thank you for coming along, and I'll see you in another week's time.
Thanks, Alistair. Bye.